Mandithathe eli thuba lifutshane ngenxa yexesha ndibulise kubantu bonke abalapha. Okokuqala mandibulise kumnini womhlaba ongekhoyo mhlawumbi apha, ukumkani ubuyele ekhaya. Sithini kanene xa simkhahlele? Azo libanzi. Siyabulela enkosi. Mandisuke ndikhahlele ke nakumama, inkosi esiphetheyo kulo mhlaba walapha eQunu, nakuyo ndithi siyabulela ngokuba esamkele apha. Ndiyabona ukuba ne-council yakhe, i-traditional council yakhe ilapha phakathi kwethu, okanye amaphakathi nee-administrators zakomkhulu zilapha phakathi kwethu. Masinike imbeko ke loo nto, inkosi kakhulu. Ndifuna uphinda ndibuyilise ne-leadership ye-OR Tambo Municipality elapha phakathi kwethu, ne-KSD, ne-Eastern Cape Parks Tourism Agency, ne-KEX Security abalapha phakathi kwethu, then Pasia Foundation, Africa Rising, Kunu Community at Large, Athletic Transkei balapha, Icons Journey, and all the media houses that have come to grace this occasion, together with our mother body, a Department of Sport, Arts and Culture that is represented here. We are aware that they are not only here for this briefing, but they are also here for the missions which are related to the work that we are doing. I want to thank you, MC, Ms. Charlie Lungsani Charlie, for driving this function towards its logical conclusion. I believe in you that surely you are capable of doing that. I also want to thank you, my entire executive, for making sure that this is becoming a reality, this media briefing session. In particular, my gratitude is directed to the woman, the only one within the cabinet of men within Nelson Mandela Museum, Umama Udalingebo. We want to thank you for running around like a headless chicken, trying to make the ends meet. We are here, silapha ke namhlanje, andizazi noba mandithethe phi na ilanguage. Silapha namhlanje. Sizokwenza into esibiza ngokuba i-media briefing session. The objective of this session is to share important information with all the stakeholders that are here and those that have not been able to come. Also to share a very critical information about the activities of Nelson Mandela Museum, the upcoming activities and the planned activities. And we want to emphasize one thing, and which is so important. When Uba Nelson Mandela established this museum, he made it clear that all the gifts that he received throughout the world, such gifts must be housed where he was born, in Kono, Mtata, and Mvezo. He received gifts from the kings and the queens, the statesmen, the politicians throughout the world, various communities throughout the world, from Queen Elizabeth III or the II throughout the world. So this is what is important. All those gifts are kept at Nelson Mandela Museum. And the purpose of doing that, it was clear to Nelson Mandela that he would want the next coming generation, not of Konu, Mtata, and Vezo, to appreciate, but the generation of South Africa and the continent to appreciate those gifts. And also, it was a good teaching lesson from Bao Nelson Mandela to say that even if you are born in the Bundus, in the villages, where there is no hope, to understand what I'm trying to say, but what is important is deep down in your heart, there is a room of potential. There is a room of potential, and also a particular strength and talent that one can use to change the world. You don't have to be born in Cape Town, in Joburg, in Durban, to be a very, call it strong person who is influential. But ungazalwa eKunu, ungazalwa eMvezo, ungazalwa eMthatha, ungazalwa eNkquza, and you can change the world. That's what he actually did. So today we are here, colleagues, to outline all the important activities about Nelson Mandela. And I would want to start by saying my input today will be grounded on the work that we'll be doing as from the 18th of July 2023. It is important for the entire community to know what it is that we will be doing. And I want to start by saying we are very busy as Nelson Mandela Museum. We are trying to reposition Nelson Mandela Museum as an international museum. We are trying to reposition this region, Tata region, KSD region, OR Tambo District Municipality, Eastern Cape, as a province to go to. And not only because you want to go there, spend your time in the game reserves. You don't have to go to the game reserves. We are calling upon you to go and interact with the local people. And the Nelson Mandela Museum, it is that vehicle that is standing there as a vehicle for that kind of interaction. An interaction between the South Africans, an interaction between the international people, and also an interaction between those people who are willing to make a change in our communities. So we are having these events that are very much important to us. As I said earlier on, that these events, their purpose is to ensure that we are repositioning this region using Nelson Mandela Museum as a foundation for that purpose, as an objective for that purpose. As you would all know, that on the 18th of July is Nelson Mandela birthday. This was declared by United Nations General Assembly as a Nelson Mandela International Day in 2010. The celebration of this day recognizes and gives credence to the former president's commitment to human rights, conflict resolution, and reconciliation. This meaning, value, and significance of this day, that is the 18th July, is very important to the people of South Africa, continent, and the world. Hence, the Nelson Mandela Museum, here in Tata, here in Kunu, prides itself on this day by ensuring that the values, philosophy, and legacy of Nelson Mandela is shared amongst the people of the world. So that is what is inspiring us as Nelson Mandela Museum. We want to share the values of Nelson Mandela. We want to share the philosophy of Nelson Mandela. We want to share not only the philosophy of Nelson Mandela, but his perspective about the world. We all know that Nelson Mandela was a champion of human rights. Nelson Mandela was the founding father of democracy in South Africa. And not only that, he was also a founding father of the South African nation. He inherited a very fragile nation. He inherited a nation that was mistrusting each other. He inherited a nation that was so disintegrated, and he stood in the center of everything else to say that I am sacrificing everything that I would want to have and ensure that this nation and the coming generation of South Africa, we are free. And so that is why we are here. There is no way that such a legacy of a great man like Nelson Mandela from the rural areas of Flagstaff and of Eastern Cape can be thrown in the dustbin of history. And that is why we are here today at Nelson Mandela Museum. We refuse by all means necessary to see the legacy of this great man being thrown in the dustbin of history. And we also refuse, as this Nelson Mandela Museum, to see the name of Nelson Mandela Museum being used by individuals because why? They want to use it for their own convenience. You will see next year, some of us will be crisscrossing this country. Calling the name of Nelson Mandela for selfish reasons. Because they want to get to power. And when they get into the political power, they begin to forget everything that Nelson Mandela stood for. And the Nelson Mandela Museum will refuse that kind of a situation. And by doing that, we are not getting ourselves into politics because we are not interested. But we are saying, people of South Africa and the politicians of this country, irrespective of your political persuasion, don't misuse the name of Nelson Mandela. So, as this museum, we are saying, this year, which is 2023, there's a lot of work that we are planning to do. And one of the things that we are planning to do, in fact, we are saying that this year, 2023, it marks the 10th anniversary of Nelson Mandela's passing on. The anniversary is celebrated under the theme, preserving his legacy and living his values, remembering Nelson Mandela, the great man. There will be a year-long program of activities that will share the incredible story of Nelson Mandela's journey. It is envisaged that the activities would have positive impact in the fight against social injustice across the country, and not only here. And the objectives of this commemoration that is happening this year, it is to preserve and promote the values and philosophy and legacy of Nelson Mandela. It is to use Nelson Mandela's values as an instrument to foster social cohesion and promote nation building, to create awareness about Nelson Mandela's work through educational programs, sport, arts and culture programs, to promote public involvement and participation in accelerating Nelson Mandela's important days and the national calendar days that are associated with the life and times of Nelson Mandela, to promote public involvement and participation, engaging the youth and community on issues relating to peace, social justice, and to be tools and stage in promoting his legacy. Lastly, to pay tribute to the life of Nelson Mandela for his contribution to the reconciliation. So we are having a series of activities, and one of those activities this year, starting from the 17th of July, thank you. Starting from the 17th of July, we are planning to have a public memorial lecture. The museum will host an international public memorial lecture under the theme Reigniting the Values of Nelson Mandela. The objective is to revisit and share the values of Mandela as an intellectual person, as a political father, as a political figure, as a father, as a reconciler, as a peace-building person. So that will be the concentration and the focus of our international public lecture, Remembering Nelson Mandela. There will be a handing over on the 18th of July. There will be a handing over of the Nelson Mandela Museum Library. 18th of July, early in the morning. There will be a handing over of Nelson Mandela Museum Library on the 18th July 2023. The museum will spend its 67 minutes renovating a library at Ingquza Comprehensive High School. Let me tell you a story about this library. There was a young girl, I think she's 11 or 12 years. She just entered my office. What, can I see the CEO? And the executive assistant said, there's the office of the CEO. She just came to my office and she said, Dada, can you please build us a library? That was in March. Dada, can you please build us a library? And I said, do you need a library? And she said, no, most of the time we have a lot of work to do, homeworks, and some of us have to go after school, long distances, and when we get home, we don't have time to do our homeworks, because why? We are traveling and we get home around about 5 o'clock, tired. So it would be nice that immediately after 1 o'clock, we go to the library within the school premises. So why you cannot demonstrate the values of Nelson Mandela by ensuring that you are building a better future for the young black child? We have done that. This will be the third initiative by the Nelson Mandela Museum to build, to renovate, to donate library to schools. One of the libraries that we have donated, I understand it is in Flagstaff. Thank you. The benefit of the library is to promote access to books, reading, homework preparation, group discussions, amongst the students. We are also saying that on the Nelson Mandela Day, that is the 18th, I told you about the 17th, the International Nelson Mandela Public Lecture. I told you on the 18th about the donation of the library to Ingquza Comprehensive School. And again, on the 18th, around about 10 o'clock in the morning, the museum will unveil 2 statues of Nelson Mandela. The statues cost plus minus 3 million rands. And the purpose of building those statues, it is to preserve, to protect, and promote the legacy of Nelson Mandela. And not only that, but also to propagate the values and the philosophy of this great man. Nelson Mandela espoused the values of freedom, non-racialism, justice and fairness, dignity and pride, humility, forgiveness and reconciliation. One of those statues is seated here in Kulu. It presents Nelson Mandela as a man that is grounded to his culture, to his heritage, history, and traditions. And that one will be placed here. It's just that right now you can't see it because it is covered. I'm sure you can see when you come inside this venue. And one of those statues that represents Nelson Mandela as a statesman will be unveiled at the Bunga building on the 18th this month. And now the question, I know you are asking the question, who will be unveiling these statues? Because there is no CEO that can unveil these statues. There is no way. And the statues will be unveiled by His Excellency President Ramaphosa. We're going to have on the 29th of July, 29th of July, we're going to have what is called Nelson Mandela Golf Tournament. We're going to have Nelson Mandela Golf Tournament. Because of the work that is done by Nelson Mandela Museum, we have managed to attract the interests of various businessmen here in Tata. Not only businessmen and businesswomen who have joined the crusade of sharing the values of Nelson Mandela with the world. And that one golf tournament, or you can call it Golf Day, will be held on the 29th of July at Mtata Country Club. The tournament is supported by various businessmen and women of Mtata. It will provide opportunities for Nelson Mandela Museum to create sound and mutual partnership and collaborations with the business sector. The proceeds of the tournament will be channeled to a charity of museum choice. One of our one of the charities where we donated, resources and given support, it is called SOS Children's Village. Another one, colleagues, we're going to have what is called African Liberation Heritage in Daba on the 12th and 13th October. The museum will be hosting its second lab of African Liberation Heritage in Daba on the 12th and 13th October in Gauteng. The Indaba seeks to reflect on the significance of the values that were espoused by our African leaders who were in the forefront of the national liberation struggles, and at the same time help each other to confront the political, social, and economic challenges facing African people, and black people in particular. The Indaba aims to create a platform of reflection and engagement on issues that are affecting our communities. The first Indaba, it was held in East London at the same time in October. But now we are taking it to Gauteng. And one would ask, why are you taking this Indaba to Gauteng? And our response is so simple, that Nelson Mandela cannot be confined to Eastern Cape. Nelson Mandela is an international icon. So everyone throughout the world and throughout this country should have access to Nelson Mandela's work. There's going to be a 5th commemoration of Nelson Mandela's passing on. Nelson Mandela passed on the 5th of December 2013. The year 2023, it marks the 10th anniversary of Nelson Mandela's passing. As a way of commemorating the late Nelson Mandela, the Nelson Mandela Museum will be hosting activities to commemorate the life and times of Nelson Mandela. And we are calling upon the community of Mthatha, we are calling upon the community of Kun and Vezo, we are calling upon the South Africans to stand up and commemorate the works, the life and times of this great man. Colleagues, we should shy away from supporting Nelson Mandela Museum. We should also shy away from celebrating the great strides that have been made by our leaders. Stop celebrating Julius Caesar. I am not interested. Stop celebrating the icons of Rome and Italy. Stop celebrating the history of Europe, Hitler. We are not interested. It doesn't help us. We should begin to reflect on the history of our great leaders, our Nelson Mandela. And not only Nelson Mandela, celebrate the history of Steve Biko, celebrate the history of Fred Sobukwe, celebrate the history of Chris Hani, and celebrate the history of our women. Oh my, that's fine. I look out at Mandela these days from Benape. Now, we are also saying February 2024, this is so important, will mark the 34th anniversary of the release of Nelson Mandela from prison, and will mark the 24th anniversary of the Nelson Mandela Museum establishment. You know what? The tradition is that every time we celebrate the release of Nelson Mandela, we go to Cape Town. And we like that. And the reason why we like that, because we are flying. And not only that we are flying, but we get to nice hotels. Yes. And we will only come back to our home ground, that is Mthatha, only when the streets of Mthatha are so beautiful, and only when our Mthatha is clean, and only when our hotels are sharp, then we'll say no more Cape Town. Do you get that? And only when we are having beautiful Kulu, that people of Kulu, they are guarding against, so that it may not be vandalized. And then we will say, no more Cape Town. We'll remain here, because this is our home ground. The proposed theme for the 34th year of Nelson Mandela's release from prison, it will be lessons learned. What lessons have we learned from the release of Nelson Mandela from prison? What lessons have we learned from Nelson Mandela as the president? What lessons have we learned from Nelson Mandela as the peace-building leader? And what lessons have we learned from Nelson Mandela as the reconciler? The Nelson Mandela release debate, I don't want to make an announcement of this one, but it's going to be controversial. Let me do that. The Nelson Mandela release debate is planned to be held in Cape Town with a live broadcast. So we're going to make sure that if we are hosting it in Robben Island, whether you are here or say Nkantolo or say Alice, you will definitely have an access to what is happening there, because why? We'll be doing a live broadcast. Is that enough? It is not enough. We have to be here physically. This place where Nelson Mandela delivered his first speech after his release from prison. And that is the justification as to why we want to be there. The debate will feature two political prisoners, a member of the reception committee. Remember that there was a reception committee which was established by the ANC to ensure that the release of Nelson Mandela from prison is so smooth. And members of parliament as the first black president who served in parliament during the first democratic days. Colleagues, that is the kind of work that we are planning to do. And another thing which is so important, we are calling upon you to join us on the 28th of July, because we'll be having what is called Icons Journey Marathon. 30th. Thank you. We will be having what is called Icons Journey Marathon Festival. That will be starting from my hometown called Alice, Fort Beaufort, Clarkberry, up to Mthatha. So we are calling upon you to join us, especially those people who want to remain physically active. We are calling upon you to join us. It's going to be a festival. It's going to be a festival of athletes. It's going to be a festival of sport. It's going to be a festival that will bring us together under the name called Nelson Mandela. So we are having various ways of celebrating the legacy, the values, and the great contribution ever made by Nelson Mandela to our democracy. So wherever you are, you must ensure. So see, if you are singing, if you are a singer, you must begin to compose songs, especially for next year if you want to be part of us. You must begin right now to compose beautiful songs about Nelson Mandela. Because throughout the year, next year, we'll be celebrating 30 years since Nelson Mandela became the first democratic elected president of this country. So we must try by all means to foreground the work that has been done by our own people. We must try by all means to ensure that the work that was done by Nelson Mandela and others, in particular, I'm so passionate about Mandela, in particular, by Nelson Mandela, is foregrounded by all means necessary. Thank you.
Thank you to the CEO of the Nelson Mandela, Dr. Vuyani Boy. He has portrayed Dr. Nelson Mandela as a leader and also as a president. Within his speech, he has also outlined, as he mentioned, that they are to renovate a library. It shows that they are in the footprints of Dr. Nelson Mandela in promoting education. So it shows that in their program, they are promoting the culture of reading. through reciprocal sharing, we have seen the Nelson Mandela building everlasting relationship with internal and stakeholders, sister organizations. Now we will call the Senior Manager of Public Engagement and Marketing in unpacking all the activities that they've been mentioned. How these programs are to be marketed, how these programs with our sister organizations, stakeholders, how we are to collaborate with them. I will call upon Ms. Jalileo, the Senior Manager of Public Engagement and Marketing. Thank you so much.
Malizibuyisele kwikomkhulu laseQunu azikhahleli kodwa ndibulisa kumakonkosi uMamlokwane, ndibulise kuwe CEO of the Nelson Mandela Museum, Dr. Vuyani Boy, the CFO, Mr. Mandis Msongela, the Senior Manager, Mr. Tapelo Benzi, the community of Qunu, and our precious stakeholders who came to grace this event today. I thank you all, and also welcoming you as Ms. Chai has already done that. I was just a headless chicken for the event to be such a success. Actually, I've taken all my words out of my mouth, so I am not going to unpack the programs. He has already done that. What I open up by Leo is for us to know that the museum has got strategic events, signature events. Why OCO is unpacked is because they talk straight to Nelson Mandela. When we talk of February 11, we talk of his race. And we know that he spent 27 years in prison, splitted in 3 prisons. So during the incarceration, we really need to move back with history too and commemorate or celebrate that. Hence the Cape Town. Ndiyazama ke uyicacisa basinabaphathi bethu abakhulu apha bazothi siyaflya silala kwiihotele ezintle, but what is important is that Robben Island is one of the sister museums and we need to celebrate such events now. There's Paulsville Prison where he spent some few years, and the Drakenstein Correctional Service. We've been spending such events kwezo prisons, which is the Robben Island will be the last one, Kulonyak. The 18th of July is not only going to be the unveiling. CEO, you forgot to announce that we will be reopening the Youth and Heritage Center. If you can recall, we used to have tourists all over the country and international visiting Lenda Utata Kanye Kanye Waishala Buyo. We have sites of significance in this area. We have sliding stones. We have a school up Waifundele Corner, which has the remains. We have his grave site, a family grave site, and his home. One of the home, a house that is built, Nelson Mandela, is the replica here, Drakenstein Correctional Service House for the last years in prison. So you can understand the rich history here too as the Nelson Mandela Museum. We are unique, and these programs are now being marketed in various platforms. We will do it with radio. You can see we have SABC, you have got UCR, there are other community radios around. We have print medias, the Daily Dispatch and others. We have so many platforms, and we have reconstructed our website. It will be up and running soon. It's going to be an interactive website. You will be able to even have what you call elders a virtual tour. The village tour where Nelson Mandela grew up in Mqhekezweni, apho wayelungele khona eTyhalarha, apho aye wakwazi ubalekela khona iBitye station, you know yonke la package sizayifaka phaa kula website yethu. Siza kuba nezinye ke social sites nazo ezisele sizisebenzisa like your Facebook page, your Twitter, your Instagram, and all. We are working with these stakeholders that are you here in this room. Nazo Market. We talk of the Eastern Cape Parks Tourism Agency, ELAPA with us now. We have the King Sabata Dalingebo Municipality, Afala Dambizelo Gamalel Gadat, we have the Tambo District Municipality that we are working with, who has been the partner in this media breakfast session. We have so many stakeholders. We've got APSA, which is with APA, which we have programs that we collaborate now as the Final Women Dialogue with CSI projects. So before I get to especially because it's late, I would like program director to allow me to give a chance to the stakeholders that are here to have a word or two to present maybe the programs that can be aligned to the programs that we are doing, so we can have collaboration. We are working on silos and we are spending money while people are doing the same programs in the same areas. Because the KSD municipality to come in front of us to present what Bona museum, and also what are they bringing to the table today to say, as the KSD municipality, as we always work together, there's much that we are bringing so that we can take this Nelson Mandela Museum forward and not only package the museum only tourists are coming to see our sites of significance, but in their package in the tourism sector, but in museum now by Pagamis. On those few words, can I allow our MMC local what you call it, economic development Udada Ududumayo to come in front and share some few minutes with us. Thank you.
Your duty, sir. Good morning, everyone. Allow me to say all the established protocols are observed as is stakeholders. And Senate pleasure to be with you. There is a meeting again at Koran we will not bore you with the activities that we will be doing as a KSD, but there are programs and activities that we're supposed to partner with the Nelson Mandela Museum. Ideally, the Nelson Mandela Museum equals a stage so by Puma group when you are 23 years in terms of age. Also in commemoration of 10 years Dada Wetu, whom we all know his values and his principles. But apa as King Sabata Daniel municipality, there will be activities. We know we have our partner. We are partners in all activities that we're doing. Accosting us and activities, but what we are standing here for today is just to say Sisonge in all the programs and activities that we have outlined in this media briefing. Also, we commit our human personnel will be part of you. We commit to say our promotional material will be part of you. Also, on the 18th, we'll assist you with a market tent for 500 people. So, we will be part. As in we don't need even to mention them because we've been working together. Because you can't speak about Utatu Mandela without Ujonghlanga, without Ingquza without Mvezo. So, as new activities will be driving together, we are part of you. That was in East London. So sizawuba sonke naseGoli. So what I was standing here for on behalf of the Executive Mayor, it was a commitment for the 18th on the unveiling and all the other activities. Siqhabela izandla ke nale commitment yala library eya ezingisa. We can't take it for granted lezi zinto where a decision is taken kuthiwe apha nge-March umntwana was part efuna CEO, and then after that there is a program that would be handing over. It shows a type of leadership that is decisive in that museum. If you have leaders who are not decisive, it takes years to do it with those few words. We are together, but ningaqhubeki sizawutsiba sibaleke because ikhona imizwe engakwazi uhlala kwenye indawo ngenxa basilapha with my director uMr. Mandla Enkosi.
Sibulile kakhulu from the KSD municipality, one of our sister organization. Besesifile that the KSD is rushing siyaqosa kwi-OR Tambo, siyayazi ngoba umasipala kumkhulu. Sizawucela i-OR Tambo as one of the stakeholders zize ngaphambili to present their programs.
Good morning to everyone that is attended, Bulisa Nkosini, Bulisa officials, Bulisa Wahlali, Balapikunu. So Pamwenu is Akona Kambule, representing the tourism office from the Tambo District Municipality. First, I want to say it was the presentations that I've had thus far. It shows that there's a lot that will be taking place in commemoration of Mr. Nelson Mandela about July. Well, I will just share our plans for assisting, particularly Upper Ekuno. As Osisi mentioned, that some of the work that we do is to also be aligned with the presentations that we've had so far. So what we did at Tambo Tourism, we registered the homestays, which is your village-based accommodation, Salapekun, as the co-op. And then the chairperson of that co-op is Mr. Tobile Janji. Well, that was part of assisting in terms of creating the formal businesses, because at first it was an informal venture whereby they would have the homestays, but you would find out that they are not registered. So we first dealt with that aspect of registering them as a corporation. Secondly, we have procured for the signage development for their homestays. A service provider has been appointed already, but what is left is for him to prepare the designs, and then the agreement was that he will send the designs to us so that we approve, which they are right for Ubana. The SMMEs will also be happy as well. So he's yet to send the designs and then forward them to us, and then once they are approved, we will ask him to print and then come and install Gozozoge as homestays that are found within Ikun. So Ikun was the main priority about KSD. So now, ahead Ubana, the first event will start with 17, going towards 18, and then I also heard but there is on the 29th, and even less than the 30th. Now, to try and align, we can use that opportunity, since we all know the financial year most Ivala today, then the next financial year will begin about July. Now, I can say for the other events that are is on the 29th and the 30th, I can say by then the signage will be developed and installed. We can find a way to align and do unveiling as well as signage that will be installed with homestays that have been identified upper Eku. I do not want to say as Nakalam on the 17th, since the financial aid is of the but we can align those sources of commitments as China as well as tourism to assist Upper Eku by prioritizing Eku with KSD by assisting e-village home-based accommodation. Thank you.
Tambo. It was such a commitment towards our programs that we are to host this year. Then we'll be moving to ABSA to come and present as one of our stakeholders that we normally partner with in a number of programs that we have in museum. Thank you so much.
Mandibulise kumuntu wonke okhoyo apha endlini ngelihle igama kaYesu Kristu inkosi yethu, amen. Igama lami ndinguKhanyisa kwaMagadla, ndisuka e-Absa Bank kula branch lapha eSutherland, ndiyi-branch manager phayana. So we as Absa, as Mamo Dalindyebo besementionile into yokubana we have a working relationship with the museum. Kudala yabakhona the relationship between the museum and the bank. But last year, yes, strengthened a relationship yet and it became solid. So all the programs that they do, the community, as I mentioned, we are part of. That is the sporting activities, especially that a partnership with the Icons Gym, which we also are part of the main sponsors of the event.